And I started to combine all those. And when I combined those two together, it really got me cleaned up because I was able to actually absorb the nutrients because many times those infections will give off so much biofilms and mucus in your gut, you won't absorb
Mhm.
them. But it's very hard to absorb the nutrients when your mucus is there. And so what happens and what occurs is people get discouraged because they can't heal and they're feeling tired. It's just a matter of getting the mucus out. That's one of the biggest components is getting the biofilms out.
Hello, hello, Heal Squad. Glad to be back with you guys today. I am hoping everyone's feeling great out there. I am as well, thanks to a little bit of coffee. It's been a long couple of days here, but I'm so excited because today's episode is going to inspire us all. Today we have the brilliant Dr. Christopher Motley. He is a globally recognized expert in frequency medicine and a licensed practitioner of Chinese medicine who's merging ancient Eastern wisdom with his latest Western innovations to solve today's biggest health mysteries. So he has had his own personal health journey that really has inspired his work. He battled Lyme disease. He survived a life-threatening ruptured ulcer. He's become his own best case study, as we usually do become, I think, and he's now helping others identify the very early signs and habits that contribute to their physical health challenges and how to use the fascinating science of, oh gosh, I don't know if it's chi frequency, I think that's what it's called, which is your body's energy paired with electromagnetic signals to unlock your body's natural healing potential. I just recently met an acupuncturist in LA that was talking to me all about this, and I had some incredible results. So I'm really giddy to chat with him. But first, our quote of the day: creating short-term victories is a mental practice that keeps the brain on track. Even if you don't feel well or feel like you are making strides in your path, working toward the small goals will keep the vision firing in your brain. And that is from Dr. Motley himself. All righty.
Alrighty.
Dr. Motley, welcome to the Heal Squad.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Maria. I really appreciate it. Very thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, first, I want to kind of get into your health journey because we have definitely something in common with the Lyme disease. I know you went through that. That means we're probably the same age
Mm-hmm.
because we probably got it around the same time. So, let's talk about your health journey because you had the Lyme disease and you also had a ruptured ulcer that was
Mm-hmm.
life-threatening. And I'd kind of like to know how they influenced you and your life journey.
Definitely. Within Lyme disease, I was around 13 or 14. So I'm 46 now. And I remember that I walked through a batch of seed ticks. So I had a small dog that my family had. It went into the woods. I walked through it. And I came out and I had, because I used to count, I was a bit of a nerd back then. I was like a kid that loved science. And I had about 60 seed ticks on my legs. I walked through a nest of them. And there was
Woo!
about 30 of them that had attached. And after that time, I didn't know anything about Lyme disease. I just remembered that my dogs would get ticks. And then shortly after that, I started getting insomnia. I started feeling things crawling up and down my legs, like something was actually inside my legs. And I couldn't go to sleep. And I would get so frustrated, I'd tell my dad, something's going on. I can't fall asleep. And I started having night terrors. And I remember that I started getting night sweats, night terrors, and then I started getting these small stretch marks on my back. And if you study enough of Lyme disease, Bartonella is a co-infection and causes cat scratch fever. And my friends used to make jokes about me when we used to play basketball. Maria, they used to say, "Did you get hit when you were a kid? Like, did you get whooped?" Because I had all these like stripes on my back and they looked like scars. And from that moment on, I did not know it was Lyme. I had no idea that it was Lyme disease. My coordination fell off, and I that time started to forget about it. But I remember that my hands and my feet started sweating profusely. I started getting major nightmares, and I remember that I started having these weird dreams, waking dreams as well. So I believe my body went into a state where the stem cells took over at that younger age. But by the time I got out of college, went into graduate school, I remember that I was literally working on a patient. I was around 31, 32 years old. And I always had chronic fatigue, but I didn't know I had it. I was very, very fatigued with my brain, always had brain fog now that I look back.
But you
And
were adjusted. You kept adjusting, right?
I kept adjusting. And the beautiful thing about the adaptation of the body, especially with Qi and Chinese medicine, is that certain organs will overtake to help you handle the problem and the issue. And when I got into to practice, I was living off coffee and I was living off cappuccinos. I was living on lattes. I almost passed down on one of my patients, and I remember my color went completely gray. And after that moment, I had every single major sign and symptom of Lyme. So I know I got it back at 13, 14 years old age. And one of my friends had just basically said that you need to go get checked out by this other doc that we knew up in Wisconsin because all I got was normal blood tests. I was told that it was just my adrenals, that I was just fatigued, that I was just
This is
stressed.
at 13, they told you this?
No, no, this was actually got to 31, 32. At
So
13 or
you
14.
never, all those years, went to the doctor for any of these symptoms or
No.
issues. And what part of the world were you living in when you stepped in this tick little nest?
In Tennessee, right in Tennessee, out in the woods. And that's the thing that was so major to me is that I never went to go get those things checked. I did have a chiropractic kinesiologist tell me they had parasites at one time because he did some checking on me and said that, but nobody ever said I had Lyme. But when I look back, I had every single major sign and symptom until I came early in the 30s and found out that I did have it. In Tennessee, they would say that you can't find Lyme disease, which is completely bogus because there's thousands of reported cases. But in the South, there's quite a bit of Lyme disease. And that's how it started in my world. And then when I started to unravel the Lyme cases in around me, I started having more people attracted to me that had Lyme disease. My friend in Wisconsin, Dr. Lindsley, he started to treat me for Babesia and Bartonella and Lyme, and I started to detox quite heavily to the point where I would take the tinctures, Maria. Like I would go full force. I would not take a little bit here and there. I would take the full amount, and I started detoxing, and to the point where I thought I was going to have to quit practice. It was so major that my headaches were getting so bad and my migraines. But as I started to
So the
detox,
detox process was painful and you were getting headaches and stuff. I mean, what else?
definitely, yes. And how was yours? Is that how yours went?
No, I want to hear the rest of yours. I'll tell you about
Uh,
mine. Mine was it's very strange because I really don't know much.
Well, when I found out that I had it, I started to take higher amounts of tinctures. I went through methylation processes as well. I started to learn about my liver. That's why people say get some genetic testing. I started to take heavier amounts of these anti-Lyme disease tinctures to the point where I had so much Lyme in my joints that I'd have achy, sore joints, and I'd had migraines on the back of my head. Like when I was driving, my head would hurt so bad around my jaws and around my temples that I literally thought that my ears would pop. That's how
Have you
bad it
ever had
was.
an MRI on your brain?
I have not had MRI yet. Mm-mm. Not yet. I've had other tests though. I've
You
had
should.
different types of scans, but
I
when
had
I
a
had,
scientist, you should listen to the episode with Dr. Christina Rom. She connected Lyme disease with brain tumors and autoimmune diseases. We had all the same things, and we both got Lyme disease too. I was the first case in New England.
really,
Yeah. And
the
so,
first case, wow.
yeah.
So did
And
they find anything? Sorry, keep going. Sorry.
well, this is what my mom remembered. She said that I was either the first or one of the very first cases. People flew in from all over the world. That's my
Hmm.
blood sugar, sorry. People flew in from all over the world to look at the back of my leg. And I honestly don't remember much after that. I was 12 or 13 years old as well.
Hmm.
And I don't remember anything. And my mom since passed. My aunt told me that it was very bad. I had really bad fevers. And then it passed. I don't know, did they give me something? Did it pass? Whatever.
Hmm.
But Dr. Christina Rom connected all of these dots. And it was interesting when we sat together and I told her that I had it and I had all the same things that she had.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure she said she had a brain tumor. I'm not crazy. But
Hmm.
But yeah, I would be very curious now to see if those headaches around the eye, because the brain tumor I have is on the trigeminal nerve that controls the whole
Really?
side of my face. So I had jaw pain, eye pains, head pains. Anyway,
Because I read that
not that
about
I'm
you.
wishing on a brain tumor on you. But
Not at
fake
all.
Dr. Menounos would like real Dr. Motley to just double check.
Well, it's really amazing that you mentioned that because I had a really cool group out of Las Vegas that does those MRI type scans and CTs like Pernuvo
Yeah.
machines, and they just messaged me, and so I'm going to go do that because I thought, you know what, I want to find out even more in that arena,
Mhm.
and because when I got CT scans of my head, I did get those for cavitations at the time when I was going through really heavy detoxification, and I thought it could be a bad tooth when I had these issues. After I found I had Lyme, I went and got MRI, X-ray first, and then I found out through CT scans that I had huge cavitations in my jawbone, where my old wisdom teeth were
And
at.
what are cavitations?
Cavitations are the cavities that are left over in your jawbone after you get a tooth extracted. So they usually leave the wound open, and they say, well, air and your own cleaning will actually detoxify it and get it healed up. But that wasn't the case. I had so much infections around my ears and around my jaw and around my throat, around the carotids from the Lyme disease and from other infections that it went in there. Get this, when I was driving, remember I told you that I would start to detoxify heavily. I went and found out I had them. I started taking the tinctures even more, and that's when my head really, really hurt. I go back to get a CT scan, and the doctor says they're not there anymore, the cavitations. That those tinctures cleaned them out. Like, and this was within a 4 month span because I hit it hard. Now, I'm
I
not
just got
suggesting
the
that to anybody.
chills.
I am not suggesting anybody do that. Like, go and just, you need to go get an MRI, you need to go get those scans. But
Wow,
when
I have
I,
chills all the way down my body.
and that it was profound to me because whenever I started to remember those times when I was driving, Maria, I remember my head hurt so bad and my eyes, I barely have them slit open going and driving. And I literally thought, this is not safe for me to drive. And I went down to almost 4 people a day treating. When I was treating about 30 people a day in the office, I literally would wear a neck brace. As embarrassing as that was, I'd wear a neck brace while I was working because my neck muscles were so fatigued. After I cleared those cavitations out, my neck muscles started to operate again.
Wow.
And that makes total sense with trigeminal nerve, facial nerve, all the nerves that go down by your carotids, all the lymph nodes, and my upper cervical could not stabilize. So my head would literally want to fall forward. And when I started cleaning out my oral area, and then my ears started to detoxify too. And that's why I think ozone's so great when you put ozone and you diffuse it into the ears and get all the toxicities out. But I had such bad ear congestion that at times I thought I was having like a tumor in my ear because I would stop hearing really well. I'd have tinnitus and I'd hear stuff in my ears. And of course, I didn't do the smart thing. I would take like a Q-tip or, what do they call them, the bobby pins, and I would feel something in my ear. And a couple of times I felt like something like a pimple was in my ear. As gross as it may sound, and I would start to try to dig into it, but it hurt so bad. So I thought it's just a pimple, will go away. And at one time, I remember it's pretty prevalent because I started doing hydrogen peroxide drainage in my ears. You ever done that where you just put the
Mm-mm.
hydrogen peroxide in your ears and you just let it go into the ear and kill all the infections? Started doing that. And one day it knocked something loose out of my ear and I was like, what in the world is that? And I tried to dig around with like a Q-tip and I got part of it, we almost got stuck. Well, I took another like bobby pin and there was like so much wax and congestion mucus in my ear, especially my right ear where I had the most of the problem. And it happened in both ears multiple times. And then it started to clear out when my hearing started to get better. I stopped having tinnitus. But the crazy thing was for everybody listening about Lyme's is that my right eye, this is another kicker. People would say, does Lyme affect your eyes? And when I got that issue in my right ear, especially that's heavy, I kept having problems in my right eye. I would lose vision in my right eye for a second. It would look like Versicolor on TV. Remember, like they'd have those little squiggly lines? And I read about it. I was like, yeah, that's a neurological damage right there because I started seeing flashing lights at night, and it scared me. Well, my vision would go and come back. And so I started doing more and more detoxification, more work on my liver detox, like the methylation process. And I went to go to the doctor to get my retina scan. And I go there to get my retina scan, and they put the dye in. They do all the whole gambit, and the doctor looked at me and says, well, you don't have a torn retina, but you do have some swelling and fluid built up around the retina. And I said, okay, can we see that, doc? And, I'm pretty inquisitive. And he says, but it's really funny because you have all these perfectly spherical looked pinholes. And if you read about Lyme and some of its infections, it's a spirochete. It's a spiral, and it'll
Yeah,
spiral
that's I had
into
it right behind my leg, a huge spiral.
it will go into the tissue and burrow into the tissue, and it just wants food. And it caused central serous retinopathy where my eye would flare up. But once I started killing off the infection, I went back a year and a half later after I took the stuff from my Lyme. I took stuff from my eyes, like these really good herbs like Eye Bright. And he says, I don't know what you're doing, doc, but your eye is cleared up. And I'm not patting myself on the back. All I'm saying is it is amazing to me that infections, Lyme, yeast, mold, parasites can get into these small areas and they're going to burrow in, like on the back of your legs. They love the legs. They love them
Yeah,
because they're full
that's
of
so wild.
proteins and they're
My It
mhm,
was on the right leg, and I got the tumor on the right side.
all on the right side, up in the
Huh?
pancreas or in
No,
the brain.
I got pancreas tumor too, though.
Yeah, I was reading about that. Usually on the right side of the brain did, I'm not trying to be too inquisitive, Maria. Stop me if I
No.
get ahead. But on yours, did your dad ever have any type of health issues?
My dad had type 1
Okay.
diabetes.
All right. Hmm.
Um,
Type 1 diabetes.
mhm.
Did he ever, I love to ask questions. When he had type 1 diabetes, did he ever have, was he the kind of guy that loved to settle arguments or try to keep everybody safe and not
You
argue?
want to
Or,
talk settle arguments? The man fist fought anybody that picked on anyone in a bar or whatever.
yep,
I mean, the
yep.
stories he has.
That's definitely, he is the person that's going to go for the underdog. Most
Yeah.
people that have pancreas issues or type 1, this is my, like, through Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic, and some German medicine, usually are the individuals that will, it's hard for them to see other people hurt. They don't like for people to
Yeah.
get into arguments. They want to settle it. And so if somebody ever said anything to your dad or to you that maybe hurt your feelings, it's not that you guys would cry over it, but it really hurts your heart that you're helping people. Those are the people who just have the pancreas and diabetes issues.
Mhm.
Always taking care of other people, always.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love hearing about these
Interesting.
stories. Hmm.
Well, the Lyme disease thing is wild because I've heard so many people that have had it forever and ever. And I don't know whether I just adjusted, didn't know enough, or what, but I think that there was probably fatigue issues that I didn't pay attention to.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like you just don't know if it's out of your system. So I guess first I want to ask you what exactly you did because I know everyone who's listening is like, wait, I know someone or I am, still battling it for whatever reason.
Hmm.
What did you take? Was this all that doctor in Wisconsin that like helped you?
There's a couple of things, definitely. I had a few doctors that helped me, but I did take tinctures by a friend of mine, Dr. Alan Lindsley, and he had severe Lyme disease because he was raised on a farm in Wisconsin. And he remembers when he got bit when he was in high school, and he had every major symptom. And fast forward, he was so sick, he literally told me, he goes, I was thinking I was going to die. He goes, because I didn't have any solution. And they had different types of Lyme herbals. So he took it upon himself to actually make tinctures. He made four formulas, and he actually has a fifth out that would go and address the parasites of Lyme like Babesia and Bartonella and Ehrlichia and Rickettsia, all those co-infections. And so he created those, and I took those heavily. So I started to kill off the infections with the tinctures, and I would do them by doing some kinesiology and biofeedback. I'd find out which ones I needed. And when I started to clean those out, remember people say, well, you need to remove it and you need to restore. But the biggest issue, if people out there have heard about like parasite cleansing, is that when Lyme or any type of infection dies off, it'll give off certain types of components like ammonia. Like literally, like if you smelled ammonia in the store, if you had a cleaning agent, it can give off certain types of acids. And when it does give off that, I usually will suggest that you get your genes tested. So what I did is I got my genes tested by My Happy Genes, and then I found out through another doctor friend of mine about which minerals and vitamins I particularly needed from my particular body to actually help my liver capture all the toxins that were getting given off. Because with your legs, Maria, I'm going to ask you because I had strongyloides parasite infections, which are threadworms that most people get when they're young or in this culture. But it gets into your calves, into your legs, and I got bit all over the legs, so I was very weak in my legs. And so my legs were the weakest part. That was hardest for me because it was very hard for me to stand. I lost my coordination. I was so tired, and my legs would just ache all the time. My feet and my heels did too. And I thought I'm not going to be able to treat, and there's no way. So I'm just going to stop practice. And then I started doing not only the cleansing, but I did the liver cleansing, the methylation with all the genetic testing. I found which B vitamins I needed, which minerals, which amino acids. I did a little bit of peptide therapy even back then, and I started to combine all those. And when I combined those two together, it really got me cleaned up because I was able to actually absorb the nutrients. Because many times those infections will give off so much biofilms and mucus in your gut, you won't absorb them.
That's
And
why
that was one hard
methylated
part.
is helpful, right?
Completely. It's already broken down, so you don't have to break it down even further. But the hardest part for people when they don't absorb, like let's say you have a bowel movement, and anybody out there, if you see green in your poop or mucus or sludge, that's a good sign that you probably have the biofilms lurking around. But biofilms just don't go into the gut; they go in the brain, the lungs, the heart, the spleen, the pancreas, all of those areas. And so, whenever you start to take a methylated B, you can try to bypass the mucus. But it's very hard to absorb the nutrients when your mucus is there. And so what happens and what occurs is people get discouraged because they can't heal and they're feeling, tired. But
Hmm.
just to encourage everybody out there, it's just a matter of getting the mucus out. That's one of the biggest components is getting the biofilms out.
Yeah. How do you know if you even have that?
To me, a few signs and symptoms. Whenever you go to, these are the most common. When you go to the bathroom, and let's say you have a normal bowel movement, but let's say always have diarrhea lightly mixed in there with it. If you ever notice that there is a small, say, foam or mucus that's floating on top of the water, those are a big signal. If you get intermittent rashes, whether it's on the full moon, you could say parasites, but when people get intermittent rashes, especially on the back of the shoulders, on the back of the arms, the little bumps that people get on there, Maria, like on the back of the
Yeah.
arms,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's SIBO, and that's mucus. So they get it on the shoulders. Anybody says, well, I have pimples all over my shoulders, on the back of my shoulder blades, on my neck, that's a big sign. So mucus in the toilet, pimples on the back of the arms, around on the triceps. And anytime a person has lots of biofilms, they're usually going to have smelly feet, smelly inguinal area around the nether regions and around the
Wait,
armpits.
smelly what?
Smelly feet and smelly inguinal right around the crotch area.
Oh,
I don't care who you are. If you not be embarrassed, I talk with this all day about with patients every day here. If you notice that you have, I don't want to get embarrassing on here, Maria, but like seriously, like people get anal discharge and they'll have they feel like they're not feeling clean down behind in the southern regions. If you feel like you have to go take a bird bath or get like wipes to do that every in their middle of the day, those are pretty good signs you have biofilms built up. Oh,
wow.
another one, Maria. I'm sorry, but anybody that has itchy scalp or those thick, people getting their dandruff and they have thick skin on their scalp, that's a big sign you probably have biofilms in the bladder or the kidneys.
How do you know it's thick skin? Does
Whenever
that
you,
feel it?
yeah, if you do this, if you take your finger and you scratch your scalp and you get just like a big clump of like dried skin, it's not
Oh,
like,
okay.
and it's just like you never, and they do this. People come in the office, they'll smell it and they say it smells really sour, or they'll scratch it and it gets a little dandruffy, and you're like, well, I take a shower, it goes away. The meridian for the bladder is on the top of the head. Anytime you have a buildup, you usually have it in the brain or in the bladder or kidneys. Hmm.
Wow. This is
I'm so
fascinating.
sorry if I'm over explaining, Paul. I'm sorry.
No, no, I think it's really, really important for people. That's what we do here. We're not on Entertainment Tonight right now. We're on Heels. So these are the things that we need to hear. I'm going to take a quick break, friends. Summer is here. And let's be honest, can you ever really have too many sandals? I think I might right now, but I really don't think you can have enough because we all need specific ones with specific outfits. And some of them have to be really comfortable because you're going to do a lot of walking on your summer vacation, doing historical sites. But listen, if you need to update some styles, you're in luck because Macy's is kicking off their great sandal sale, and it's the ultimate excuse to pick up a fresh new pair. I love a good slip-on sandal that's easy to throw on when I'm running around with Athena and doing my errands. I did just find a really cute pair of Franco Sarto platforms that are cute. Clark's also has the comfiest everyday sandals that are going to make you feel like you are literally walking on clouds. So here's the deal. You buy one pair for 40% off. If you buy two or more pairs, you get 50% off. I've even dropped some of my styles that I love in my personal wish list in the show notes below. So if you guys need a little bit of inspo, you can check that out. So go ahead, give yourself some fashion love to your feed. You can share it on Instagram with me as well. And shop in store at Macy's.com from June 25th through July 7th. Happy shopping, friends. We left off with the symptoms you should be looking out for biofilm that were, of
Mhm.
course, unpleasant, but we need to know about them. So how long did it take you to recover from Lyme, and are you fully recovered? And can you ever be fully recovered? I don't know.
It's a very good question. It took me from the time that I found in my early 30s, it took me a solid 5 or 6 years to recover, simply because I kept working as much as I could force in the clinic with patients that come into the office. I usually find that it could take them a good year and a half to 2 years to start to really clean out quite a bit of Lyme. So it took me longer because I did not take the time to actually rest like I needed to. That's my nature. I should have listened more to my body. When
Mm.
patients come in, I usually tell them it could take me up 8 months to a year to get the majority of it out, but usually I tell them it's going to be about a year and a half to 2 years. When you start to clean it out, I have had patients that have had on their test that they've had down to negative, like that they don't show Lyme disease. The problem when people say, "Can you ever get rid of it?" is just going back to the biofilm issue. It's one issue. The hardest part is that they'll create biofilms in certain areas, and it's up to your body's and its innate intelligence and the chi to realize when that biofilm could actually release and let go. And so it's really tough. That sometimes people get discouraged just because after a few years they'll feel great and they don't have, they're not showing any signs of Lyme, and then they come back and they say, "Hey, I'm starting to slur my words a little bit like I did before," or "My shoulder starts to hurt," and then you go and investigate, and they're having all the signs and symptoms of their body getting rid of a biofilm. That's really tough. Can you fully get rid of it? I couldn't answer that and say yes, predominantly because biofilms are so tricky. Have I seen patients that have lived normal lives without it? Yes, I have. And I'm not trying to sound cocky on that. I just have seen it. But biofilms, to me, are so intricate. The way that the infections live in a quorum, they communicate with each other and they will try to hide. And so when people say you'll never get rid of Lyme, it's a great discussion point. The biggest key for me is that where are the biofilms hiding at? What are the emotional stresses that triggered it, and why is the organ trying to flush it out of its body at that particular time? That's the key, and that's the hardest part to answer when it comes to Lyme disease.
Wait, you said something that just like shook me for a second, but I also need to remember a question, which I think I already forgot. So I'll remember this part for now. You
Hmm.
said slurring your words.
Hmm.
When we first discovered the brain tumor, one
Hmm.
of the biggest signals for me that there was a brain tumor was I was slurring my words.
Yes. Yes.
And but my neurosurgeon was like, your tumor is nowhere near your speech. And I was like, well, how do you explain the fact that I'm slurring my speech out of nowhere?
Hmm.
And then it kind of was consistent for a little while. And even after brain tumor was mostly removed, they didn't get all of it,
Hmm.
it was still happening.
Yes. Yes. Whenever
So
you
that could be
have,
the Lyme disease.
totally, in my
Is
opinion.
there a test that I can take that will tell us?
Normally, they wouldn't tell you that they could identify the Lyme disease actually in the select hemisphere of the brain, but there are tests. I know your neurologist already done this probably, but like the cranial nerve test, like the hypoglossal nerve and the nerve that like controls your uvula, that controls the upper palate, they would do those tests to tell you that it's deficient, that you can't do the action of the actual muscles around the mouth, oral cavity. Now they got tests. They're making more advancements, like called neurozoomers, and there's like Genova diagnostics. But basically, in a nutshell, these tests will test for the actual infections byproducts, their toxicities that are given off. And some of the testing now will usually test like the mucus. You can test the nasal discharge, like your snot. You can check your ears. You can check your oral cavity, like your spit. But they'll check specifically for different types of disease toxins that are affecting your neurology, like your brain. So that may be some way to do it, because if you still had it and it wasn't near your brain, your speech centers, I can't. I'm not a neurosurgeon, so but I've seen where patients from my type of testing would have higher amounts of infections around those cranial nerve centers. And what they do, they love to burrow, and they will go anywhere there's sugars and there's proteins and fats. And where's that? Certain parts of the brain. So it can really definitely give you slurring speech. That's one reason when people come in, when they tell me something of this sort, Doc, I'll be talking and I'm okay, and I'll start sort of slurring my words. Then you think stroke or tumor, and they've gone in and got it tested. I don't have that. And then when they say my vision's going, my doctor says nothing's going on.
My vision too.
Your vision's going, and you'll start to.
No, I have perfect vision. I have beyond perfect vision, actually. The doctor was like falling off his chair. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes they're blurred.
They're blurred.
And it's mostly, I think, on the right side. I don't remember it being on both, but I think I occasionally have had it on the left. Maybe.
Do you have auras or anything like that on the right side? Like auras, like you see like rings, or do you feel like squiggly lines, or do you see like flashes of light, or just feel
I've seen squiggly lines my whole life, I feel like, on and off. Like if I'm, yeah.
And most people think that sounds.
They look like little amoebas.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's a lot of different types of microbes that will get into the aqueous humor around the eye. That definitely is a legit thing. With those infections, though, the hardest part is that whenever you get an infection, like let's say on your right side, and it was in like near cerebellum or in the brainstem, wherever an infection can reside, is that it'll get on that optic nerve, and it'll get into the cerebellar area. And remember, the optic nerve is right back here in the back. And so whether it's on, and they crisscross patterns, the nerves do, but all I'm going to say is that on the back of the head, if you get an infection up in that area, it can get into the optic nerve area and it can damage them. And the reason they love nerves is because there's such a high amount of energy produced by neural cells. They produce a ton of ATP, and they'll get in those areas. And when you have flashes of vision, low vision, farsightedness, or the thing I always tell people is you always have to A, clear out the head, because it's probably pinpointing the head, but B, you have to clean out your liver. Eyesight is controlled by the liver.
I have liver stuff too.
Totally. You have to clean your liver out, because you have higher histamine in your blood if your liver is congested, and your eyesight, the eyes or openings are always controlled by the liver and the gallbladder. And I can get into the gist of it, but it's going to be nerd talk. But there are certain types of glands and muscles around the eyes that are directly correlated with the liver and the gallbladder. So you would have to clean both sides out, or both areas out. Mm-hmm. So that's where the vision issue comes in.
So what was your original medical degree? Like, what did you first start practicing, and has it been the same ever since? Because it sounds like you probably have shifted a lot.
I shifted a lot. I went to chiropractic first because my dad had a friend. The reason I got into chiropractic university first, because I actually wanted to be like a neurosurgeon. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And then I read a report about how much depression was with neurosurgeons because the stress. So I decided not to, because I love neurology and anything that has to do with biology. So I went there, and I'm not trying to make too much of a rabbit trail, but I got into more of the frequency medicine. When I got to school, I thought I was just going to normally just do, let's just do some neurological testing, cranial nerve testing, get into the neuroscience of which I did. But when I went to school, before I went to school, into chiropractic school, I went and had, I had gotten into a car wreck. I got rear-ended really badly, and my neck would never stay in place. So they did the normal chiropractic maneuvers. Well, I had a friend of mine who was in school. He's a friend of mine. And he said that he would work on my neck, but he said he worked on my gallbladder. And I said, what do you mean you worked on my gallbladder? And when he did that, he worked on the acupuncture points of the gallbladder and the lymphatic points associated with the gallbladder, and my neck never went out again. So I was very intrigued. Okay, I'm thinking, what does that mean? Because the gallbladder channel in Chinese medicine starts here, goes to your TMJ, wraps around your ear, goes back, goes all the way around like a horn on the neck, goes right down the neck. But my gallbladder, my dad had gallbladder issues. My grandfather had his removed. And I had such congested gallbladder that when he fixed those points, my neck muscles responded, my lymphatics didn't, they drained, and my neck muscles stabilized because all that neurological and chi tension was right here. And so I shifted. I went more into Chinese medicine. So I got certified acupuncture, Chinese medicine. That was the route I did. I did kinesiology, like some biofeedback, muscle testing. Chinese medicine's always been something that was really dear to my heart. And so I started to really dive into the meridian system and how the meridian system works. So that's been my practice the whole time. I love methylation and genetics. I studied genetic pathways, done quite a bit of that. I try to really learn about biochemistry and physiology. But when it comes down to it, I'm more of a Chinese medicine practitioner through and through. So that's my background there. Yeah.
And you're based in LA.
No, I'm here in Nashville.
Oh, you're in Nashville.
Yep. You know
Oh,
Dr.
wow.
Ram? I was gonna go over
So you
to
know
her.
Dr. Ram.
Well, I've only met her through friends, as in I said hello, but she has a new studio I heard over here, and one of my friends knows her. I was like, I need to go see her place, and she
Oh,
said she wanted to do a
yeah.
podcast at time.
So I want to really dive into the acupressure, acupuncture, um, and kind of that whole arena because I have recently had an experience with it that finally blew me away. And I've always believed in it. I just never had a practitioner that has actually given me results that was visible.
Mm,
Not to say that whatever the other people did wasn't helpful, but this was instantaneous, mind blowing, has changed my life.
yes.
And I want people to understand it more. So I was really excited when you were coming onto the show because I know you can explain it really well for people.
Mm-hmm.
We were at my daughter's birthday party and I was giving people all the acupressure points for constipation. And it was like anywhere from like a 55-year-old to a 20-year-old listening, and everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
So I would love to leave this part here and have everybody come back tomorrow to really dive into this world because you obviously have gone through your journey and you've used all of these to your benefit. I also want to get a little deeper into what those tinctures were, where people can get them, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can make sure anyone who's listening to this episode has those answers for their benefit and to help them in their journeys as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
friends, if this episode was helpful to you, please share it with a friend. And please come back tomorrow for part 2 of our conversation with Dr. Motley. In the meantime, be nice people, make good choices, and be present. Hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.